Hey everyone, the video I'm going to be doing for you today is how to build out a nymphing box. I get asked a ton of questions on the types of bugs that I use and my whole thought process behind choosing them. So I'm going to give you some tips and some pointers, and hopefully this is going to help you out. And I'll make sure in the description of this video, I'm going to put links to how to tie all these different flies, whether it's my video or somebody else's. So what is my thought process? So I like to take what I consider a rifled approach, where a lot of people take a shotgun approach. And what I mean by that is a rifled approach is taking a handful of patterns and tying a lot of them in various sizes and weights. I think I'm probably going to talk about maybe 7 or 8 patterns. That's kind of the base. So we're talking about building a base of nymphs, and then you build on that. A lot of people, they take like a shotgun approach. And what I mean by that is, this is a fulling mill tactical box here. It holds about 1,000 flies. And what I see people do is, you get that great sense of accomplishment when you fill up a box, right? There's nothing more satisfying than filling a row and then filling the next row. It's just satisfying. And that's what I see people do is they'll pick a fly, they're going to fill up a row, and then they go into another row, they pick another pattern, they fill that up. The next row, another pattern, the next row, another pattern, and they keep putting a bunch of different patterns, and they fill up the entire box. You have all these different patterns. What happens is, go to the stream, you pick out a fly that you really like, you tie it on, you catch a trout or two, and then maybe you lose it. You go back to that same row, you pull out that same fly, tie it on, catch a few more trout, lose it, go back to that same row, pull it out, tie it on. And you get what I'm getting at here is we tend to use the same patterns. So what happens is you end up with a box full of flies that you never end up using. So they're just space taker-uppers. And what you want to do is you want to use multiple rows of those patterns that you really like and have confidence in. So that's my suggestion. Don't do the shotgun, do a rifled approach, build that base, and then you can always add later, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video. So what flies are we trying to represent, and what's my thought process behind this? So there's really 5 different types of aquatic insects. There's mayflies, there's caddis, midges, stoneflies, and then I lump, these are really 3 species, but I kind of lump them together, scuds, sow bugs, and freshwater shrimp. So we're trying to use bugs that represent all these different types of insects. So let's first talk about mayflies. There's 4 flies. When I look at my box, there's 4 flies that I use a lot to represent mayflies. First one is a pheasant tail. And what I would suggest when you're tying that pheasant tail, just maybe pick 1 or 2 pheasant tail patterns. A natural pheasant tail, and then maybe a pheasant tail like a Frenchie with some pink ice dub for the collar. Something like that. Just a couple patterns. Don't do 20 different types of pheasant tails. Just pick a couple patterns, and then you can always start adding later, but build that base. So a pheasant tail is a pattern I use a lot for mayflies. I love my Jack Daniels. This fly has caught, I talk to people, it's really been embraced. I've caught more trout on this fly over the last 2 years than any other fly in my box. People are using it all over the world: Australia, New Zealand, Europe, UK, East Coast, Rocky Mountain West. I mean, this fly catches fish all over the world. I highly recommend the Jack Daniels. There's 2 Perdigons that I love. One is my Olive Flash Perdigon, or the Gasolina. It's very similar to that. Another one I like is a Coolie Rojos. That is the OG of Perdigons. It was one of the originals. We like to call it the Spanish Bullet here in the United States, but check out the Coolie Rojos, a great pattern. And all of these patterns These are the sizes that I tie the most. It's size 18, 16, and 14. That's the workhorse of these patterns. And I tie them 2 3s, 2 8s, 3 3 beads. The second fly is a caddis. I use one fly to represent a caddis, and that's the waltz worm. 18, 16, and 14. Waltz worm is hare's ear. I would just choose a couple different colors, hare's ear, maybe a natural and say a light olive, and that's going to give you a lot of different types of bugs there. You can put a small orange collar, you can do what's called a sexy waltz, but I highly recommend the waltz worm to represent a caddis. The third bug out there that we want to represent is a midge. I like using my France midge. That is a great pattern. I tie it in an olive and I tie it in a black. Those are the two main colors I use for my France midge. The next fly we want to represent is a stone fly. That's an easy one. I use my stone pony. I tie it in a size 14 and I tie it in a size 12. I really feel like if you downsize your stone flies, most people use a Pat's rubber leg, and it is a great fly, but they're usually enormous. And I find out I have more success and I catch just as many large fish when I downsize my stone fly imitation. That's why I love my stone pony. Size 14, size 12. Now, sow bugs, scuds, freshwater shrimp. What do I use for that? I use a waltz worm. Same fly I use for a caddis. And I consider a waltz worm what I call a crossover nymph. And there's a lot of bugs that I just talked about that cross over. One fly that I want to add is you need a great representation of a blue-winged olive, which is a mayfly. But it is a special bug. There's a ton of them out there, and they're typically on the smaller size. I like a France fly for that, and I also like a simple olive paragon. These are great bugs. But I would suggest if you don't want to tie the France fly and you want one bug to represent a blue-winged olive and a midge, it's my France midge. It's one of those crossover nymphs. I love that bug for that. Size 20s and size 18s. So another bug that I love and I really feel like is a crossover nymph, and this was my whole thought process when I tied the Jack Daniels, is this is a bug that represents mayflies, caddis, and stoneflies, smaller stoneflies. I was out in the Madison in Montana, and I can't even tell you the number of fish I caught on the Jack Daniels, and I really had that fly on there because there are a ton of golden stoneflies in the Madison, and I just caught a ton of fish on the Jack Daniels. So these are the flies, these are the base, these are the workhorses of the box. So just tie a lot of these patterns, fill up your box, and then once you do that, that's when you can start adding flies in. I call them tester patterns. Maybe you see a bug that you're interested in. Instead of devoting an entire row to that, tie maybe 3 or 4 of that pattern, and it's a tester pattern. Then when you go out on the stream and you use it and you have success and you have confidence in it, that's when you devote an entire row to that particular pattern. So that way you're not tying a bunch of patterns, taking up space in your box. So a couple other things I'd like to talk about. One, size 12 bugs. So I really only, as bugs get larger, like a size 12, I tend to stick with more natural patterns. So I really like to use a waltz worm, a Jack Daniels, or a pheasant tail. Really, those are the only 3 patterns that I'll carry in a size 12. And I will also put 3/8 beads on a size 12 because just depending on your watershed, you do need some heavier bugs for heavy water, windy condition, things like that. But I don't have a ton of bugs that are 3.8 beads. Also 2mm beads. I don't have every fly in my box that has a 2 mil bead on, but I do have a lot of France midges. I have a lot of very small paragons, like a simple olive paragon or a small olive flash paragon, size 20s and 18s. So you do want some 2 mil beads as well. But once again, that workhorse of the box, 2 3s, 2 8s, 3 3s, size 18, 16, and 14. So I hope this video was helpful and you got something out of it. If you did like it, I'd appreciate if you give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment below. I'm happy to help you out. If you like what I'm doing, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe. And as always, tight lines, everybody. I'll talk to you later.